Have you ever looked at an ancient artifact, something really old, and just wondered, not just what it is, but how on earth did they actually make it? The real nitty-gritty. Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, looking at secrets hidden in, well, teeth, ancient animal teeth. We're exploring these fascinating prehistoric communities and how they used animal teeth for personal ornaments like pendants or decorations on clothing. But we're going beyond just admiring them. Our mission today is to unpack this really groundbreaking study. It looks at how Stone Age hunter-gatherers actually got these teeth out of the animals. It kind of challenges some long-held ideas, right?
It really does. And to set the stage, we're focusing on this incredible site, the Zvejnieki cemetery in Latvia. We're talking about a long period here, roughly 7,500 to 2,500 BC, calibrated. It's just this archaeological treasure trove. Think about it. Over 2,000 animal teeth found in the graves there. It gives us this amazing data set for exactly this kind of experimental archaeology.
Okay, let's zoom in on Zvejnieki then. Picture this hunter-gatherer cemetery, northern Latvia. It was actually on an island back then in Lake Bertnix. And the scale is just immense. They found 330 separate burials. And get this, 115 of those had grave goods. And of those, over 80% included animal remains, mostly teeth.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of material, really gives us a unique window. And the diversity of the teeth is striking, too. In the earlier phases, you see loads from big grazing animals, ungulates, like Eurasian elk, 681 teeth found, wild boar, 545, red deer, 381, even aurochs, the big wild cattle, 113 teeth. But then later on, things shift a bit. More carnivore teeth start showing up. Dogs, seals, pine marten, that kind of thing.
Seals. That suggests maybe trade or travel, right? Since it's inland.
Exactly. And perhaps the most mind-blowing find is this one double burial, numbers 122 and 123. Inside, 332 teeth. Just think about that number. From at least 24 different wild boars, 17 red deer, 15 elks, plus loads of other species.
All right, that's not casual collecting, is it?
Not at all. It screams significant time, serious effort. And like you said, possibly those exchange networks, especially for things like seal teeth that weren't local.
It really does. Now, for a long time, researchers looked at these teeth mostly for their symbolic meaning, or how they looked, their decorative side, how they were used in the burials.
Right. The focus was on the end product, the ornament itself and its context.
But here's the interesting bit. That very first step, how do you get the tooth out of the dead animal's jaw? That was often just overlooked. Why do you think that was such a basic step?
That is a really good question. It's strange, especially when you think about this concept archaeologists use called the champ operatoire. It's basically the whole sequence of actions, from raw material to finished object, the whole production line, if you like. But for these tooth pendants, that crucial first step, the extraction, it was kind of missing from the research. So it almost created this idea that the teeth were just there, ready-made, maybe scavenged easily, almost disconnected from the animal itself.
Basically, they just appeared.
Exactly. And this new study, that's the gap it fills. It puts that human-animal interaction right back at the start of the story.
So how did they figure it out, this experimental archaeology approach?
Well, the team went to the Ideia Experimental Center over in eastern Latvia, and they got really hands-on. They decided to test 7 different ways someone in the Stone Age might have tried to get these teeth out.
7 methods. Okay.
And just to be clear, no animals were killed for the study. This was all using byproducts from local, legal hunting. Very ethical approach.
Good. So what were the methods they tested?
Okay, so first, they tried simply cutting them out. Using flint flakes, flint blades, trying to sever the tooth from the bone, that was E1. Second, percussion, E2. Basically, hitting the jawbone, the mandible, with things like stone cobbles or maybe even wooden clubs, trying to crush the bone a bit to loosen the teeth.
Makes sense. A bit brutal, maybe.
Potentially, yeah. Third was scavenging or air drying, E3. Just leaving a jawbone outside, letting nature take its course, hoping decomposition would loosen the teeth. Fourth, soaking, E4. Sticking the jawbone in water for, well, a long time.
Okay.
Fifth, direct heat, E5. Putting the jaw right into an open fire.
Ooh, okay. I could see that maybe working or not.
We'll get to that. Sixth was cooking, specifically boiling, E6. Simmering the jaw in a pot like you'd cook meat. And finally, seventh, cooking via an earth oven or steaming, E7. Placing whole heads in a pit with hot stones and moisture, basically steaming them underground.
Right, like a traditional pit cook. So a real range of possibilities there.
Exactly. Each one chosen because it seemed like something people back then could have plausibly done.
All right, the moment of truth. The results. After all that testing, what worked? What was a total bust? And how does it line up with the actual teeth found as Zvejnieki?
Okay, well, let's start with the failures. Some things just did not work at all. Direct heat, putting it in the fire, complete failure.
Really? I thought maybe that would loosen it.
You'd think. But no, the heat made the enamel super brittle, easy to crack, and counterintuitively, it actually sort of glued the teeth into their socket.
It glued them? How?
Well, the collagen in the gum tissue around the tooth, the gingival cuff, it gelatinized from the heat, then as it cooled slightly or dried, it hardened and basically cemented the tooth in place.
Wow. Okay, definitely didn't see that coming.
Yeah, surprising. And crucially, you just don't see burn marks on the actual teeth from the Zvejnieki graves. So, that method, pretty much definitively ruled out.
Okay, one down. What else failed?
Scavenging or air drying was also largely a non-starter, at least in the conditions they tested, which were winter conditions. The cold and dry actually seemed to make the teeth more firmly attached. They didn't loosen.
Huh.
Now, maybe in warmer, wetter weather, it might work eventually. But even then, relying on scavenging makes it really hard to collect a whole set of matching teeth like those found in the burials. Animals drag things away, teeth get scattered.
Right, you wouldn't easily get those sets of 24 boar teeth, for example.
Exactly. It doesn't fit the archaeological pattern of these curated sets.
Okay, so fire and air drying are out. What about the others? Any maybes?
Yeah, there were a couple of methods that were challenging but sort of possible. Cutting them out with flint tools, it was feasible, especially if the animal was young and the jawbone was softer. But for adult animals, really tough going.
I can imagine.
And it tended to leave clear-cut marks on the tooth roots, sometimes even the crown, which generally you don't see on the Zvejnieki teeth.
Although, couldn't they have maybe ground those marks away later when making the pendant?
Theoretically, yes, that's a possibility. So cutting isn't entirely ruled out, but it doesn't seem like the primary method given the lack of marks and the difficulty.
Okay, what about hitting it? Percussion?
Percussion, yeah. Using a sharp-edged stone, you could break the bone and loosen the teeth, so it's viable. But it often damaged the teeth themselves. You'd get broken roots, cracked crowns, things you don't generally see on the pristine Zvejnieki examples. Plus, it often left bits of soft tissue stuck to the tooth, meaning you'd need a lot more cleaning afterwards.
So, possible, but messy and risky for the tooth itself.
Pretty much. Less than ideal if you want perfect ornaments.
Which brings us to the winners. What really worked?
This is where it gets really cool. The aha moment, kind of. Soaking in water, that worked. It took a long time, weeks, maybe even months.
Patience required.
Definitely. But the teeth came out clean, undamaged. The downside is you've got to keep scavengers away from your soaking jawbone for all that time and make sure the water doesn't get too foul.
Practical challenges then.
Right. But the clear winners, the most effective methods, the cooking techniques.
Boiling and steaming.
Exactly. Both boiling in a pot and steaming in an earth oven worked incredibly well. They loosen the teeth efficiently and, crucially, without damaging them.
Matching the pristine condition of the finds.
Perfectly. But here's the absolute key discovery they made.
Yeah.
You have to extract the teeth while the jawbone and the gums are still warm.
Oh, right. You mentioned the collagen.
Yes. As it cools down after cooking, that collagen re-solidifies and it glues the teeth right back into the sockets, just like the direct fire did, but after cooking.
So if you let it get cold, you're stuck again.
You're stuck again. You can't get them out easily or without potentially breaking them. So timing is everything. Extract them while they're warm and loose.
That's fascinating. And the earth oven method.
Particularly good. You could process whole heads that way, very efficient. And it doesn't require pottery, which, remember, only shows up later in the Zvejnieki timeline. So it fits the earlier periods, too.
This seems like it connects so many dots, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The lack of damage, the efficiency.
It really does. The fact that soaking, boiling, and steaming leave virtually no trace on the tooth itself fits perfectly with what we see archaeologically. It strongly suggests these weren't just random attempts, but a common, understood practice, a technique. And what's really profound here, I think, is seeing how tooth extraction wasn't some separate, specialized task. It was woven right into daily life, specifically into cooking.
Right, preparing food, getting ornaments.
Exactly. It forces us to rethink that chaîne opératoire, that production sequence. It links cooking, making adornments, and even how people dealt with death and burial all together.
Especially with that earth oven method. You can just picture it, can't you? Processing maybe a whole elk or several boar heads. You get the meat, you get the brains, important food sources, but you also get these perfect teeth for decorating things and bones left over for making tools.
It's maximum efficiency, and it paints a picture not just of survival, but of social activity.
Like feasting.
Quite possibly. Preparing that much food, processing heads like that, it suggests communal effort, maybe gatherings, feasting.
Which then ties into the burials. Could those big feasts have been connected to funeral rituals at Zvejnieki?
It's a really intriguing question the study raises, because think about those burials with hundreds of teeth from dozens of animals. That doesn't sound like the result of one hunt just before the funeral, does it?
No, it sounds like accumulation.
Yeah.
Collecting over time.
Exactly. Accumulated, curated, maybe traded or gifted, and then perhaps sewn onto clothes or a burial shroud over time. These teeth become this tangible link, connecting the living community with the person being buried, maybe even representing their life history or social connections.
And it tells us so much about how they saw animals, too. They weren't just picking any old tooth, were they? Selecting specific ones, carnivore canines, adult incisors.
Deliberate choices, absolutely. It's not just about what looks nice. It probably reflects the symbolic or cosmological importance of certain animals in their worldview.
And could the way they extracted them, like the gentle steaming, have been part of that? A respectful way to receive this gift from the animal rather than just yanking it out.
That's a fascinating thought. That the process itself held meaning. It suggests the teeth were seen as something willingly given by the animal, when processed correctly, perhaps. And it's interesting, too, we mentioned younger animals have softer bones, easier extraction.
Right.
Yet they found plenty of teeth from adult animals at Zvejnieki, which might mean they were specifically hunting older, maybe more significant animals, or perhaps they just preferred the look or size of adult teeth.
So many layers to it, just from figuring out how they got the teeth out.
Exactly.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener?
I think this deep dive really shows how looking closely at a seemingly simple, practical task, getting a tooth out of a jaw, can just unlock these incredible insights into how daily survival, symbolic expression, identity, ritual, it was all woven together for these ancient people. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other everyday, maybe mundane-seeming activities from the past hold these kinds of rich stories? We're really just starting to appreciate the full life story of objects, from the animal through the human hands that processed it to its final place in a grave. It's a powerful narrative.
It definitely makes you think about how practical needs and cultural meaning are so often intertwined, maybe even in our own lives today, in ways we don't always notice.